Okay, so let's carry on extending this example, and the first thing we're going to do is to add some metadata. So we come to the outline panel, right click on metadata, new metadata, and because we've actually got the fields defined in that customer CSV file, we're going to select extract from flat file. Let me just bring this into view a bit. Let's go and find our file, which is in that data in folder. Okay, there it is. Let's just bring up the bottom of this window for you. Okay, there you can see on the first row we've got the customer data. So let's click on next, and now I'm going to expand this window because otherwise it doesn't really make much sense if it's collapsed, and I'm going to move it up and down. So in the middle we can see how it's had a first go at reading it in. It's divided all of the things up. It's worked out here that the right delimiter. And what I'm going to do is say, okay, well, let's get it to extract the names. Press repass. And you can see here now at the top of these columns we've actually got the proper names. That's all we need to do. In a later example, I'm going to actually show you how you can do some more interesting things with metadata. Before I leave this, though, I will actually give this record name, change that to customers, and that's going to be named then properly inside the metadata section here. Okay, so that's our metadata created. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start trying a couple of things out. So I'm going to put in a writer, and we've got this special writer called trash. What this allows me to do is to run my graph, and rather than actually creating an output file, for instance, we can run it into the trash. So we can do lots of debugging and see how things are working without actually creating files. So we've added the trash, then we're going to come up here, select Edge, and join the upper output port to the trash input port. We'll talk more about ports in a later video. Now what I need to do, so I'm going to press Escape to get it back to select mode, is I now need to assign metadata to this edge. So I'm going to right click, select metadata, and there's the only metadata format that we've got so far, customers. So what that does is when data is read in here, it's sent along this line and it's pushed into that customers metadata structure. And it will then arrive on the input port of trash in that format too. So what I'm going to do now is I can run that. So I'm going to click run, and this is going to run the graph. I'm going to run the ETL graph. Okay. And it's probably starting up the engine for the first time. Okay, now I'm going to expand this so we can see what went on here. We can see at the bottom that 92 records have been processed. So there's a lot of detail in here. Some of it's a bit scary when you first look at it. Don't worry. Basically, just get used to focusing on the stuff that's useful and ignore the other bits. But when you do have problems, you'll find any bit of information that you might need will all be listed in this output window. Alternatively, come along to the Clover log, and that does a slightly better job at filtering out the stuff you're probably not going to be interested in. So here, this is the run that happened at 11:34. We can expand it, and you can see here that everything's gone nicely. There are no red lines. If there were any red lines in here, you'd have errors. So this is slightly more compact. Okay, the final thing I'm going to do now is show you how to debug. And you can see here 92 records have gone along this line. That's also useful information. If I right click now though and go enable debug, puts this little bug symbol on there. Now I have to rerun it afterwards, and this will generate, wherever any edge in my graph has got a bug symbol, it will generate debug information. And after it's run, what I can then do is to right click on the line and say view data, however many records I'm interested in, and now you can see how it's been split up into individual fields. So I can actually see the format of the data as it moves along one of these edge connections, and then finally in this case ends up in the trash. So there's nothing really to see here, even though I select view data, because it's actually not created anything in the case of the trash. So let's now look at a more advanced example and extend this one in the next video.